Good morning, all. We welcome you to the CDE program on innovation, why and how, organized by the Department of Periodontology and the institution's Innovation Council, Chettinad Dental College and Research Institute. Innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity and not as a threat, said Steve Jobs. No single activity has had a deeper and a broader impact on the modern society than science. Science as a culture has shaped our contemporary institutions, and in the Western societies, it is also imposed a world outlook wherein it is assumed that in principle, everything can be explained without reference to gods. In a society where money and economic growth have been regarded as the most valid indicators for performance, it is tempting for the advocates of science to point to the economic impact as a major argument why everyone should support innovations at whatever level. The ability to generate scientific and technological knowledge and translate it into new products and processes is also a key instrument of growth and development. Yet we have so many doubts surrounding this institution, and thus we have today amongst us two eminent speakers to enlighten us about innovation, why and how. So the first speaker for today, we have Dr. Shivashakti ma'am with us. Good morning, ma'am. Ma'am is a prosthodontist who's qualified in the field of education with a postgraduate diploma in health profession education and PhD in health profession education. She was also endowed with the Sri Guru Charan Das Endowment Medal for the best PhD scholar. She has one granted patent, two published patents, 6 patent field, and 29 copyrights granted to her credit. She has 40 publications and has contributed to 5 training manuals on palliative care for medical officers. Her key areas of expertise and consultancy include choice-based credit system, national education policy, IPR, health profession, education, prosthodontics, and palliative care. So on to you, ma'am, for the first lecture for today.
Thank you. I think you can introduce Dr. David also, because we do team presentation. It is not first speaker and second speaker.
Okay. Our next speaker is Dr. David Livingston. Sir has completed his BDS from Mahatma Gandhi Postgraduate Institute of Dental Sciences, MGPGI Pondicherry in 2000, and has also completed his Master of Dental Surgery in 2006. Sir is also a prosthodontist and an implantologist. His academic experience includes 15 years of teaching experience. Sir is currently a professor in the department. Sir is also served as the NAC coordinator in IGDI and is a core group member for the Internal Quality Assurance Cell at Sri Balaji Vidyapith University. Sir has also many patents and innovations to his credit and also has many copyrights and several research activities under him. On to the session now.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning all present here. It's a great pleasure for us to have shared the day with you. 1 minute, I'll just share the screen.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope the screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am. The screen is visible.
Yeah. Okay. At the outset, we want to thank Department of Periodontology and Institution Innovation Council, especially Dr. Akila and HOD of Department of Periodontology, for giving us this opportunity to share with young minds there on innovation, why and how. Actually, this is going to be a team presentation. Somebody needs to get it right. Somebody from the organizing team. Yeah, thank you. You're muted. So actually, in addition to this, Dr. David will also be chipping upon and telling you about what to innovate, just to give an idea for you to start with, begin with. Okay, so this is going to be a team presentation by us. The initial start would be by Dr. David on why innovate, and then the second process on how to innovate by me, and later again, what to innovate, the examples.
Thank you, Dr. Shivashakti, and thank you to the organizing team for inviting us. So, as they introduced me, I am Dr. David, professor in Department of Periodontics and the Institute of Dental Sciences. So today I will just walk you through what really is this innovation right? And it's so nice actually to engage these aspects even in the student time, because we heard of innovations later in our career, especially when we were focusing on accreditations in the institute. It's so nice to actually tell the young students, think of innovations early on in their career, so that the way in which they can train themselves to achieve and accomplish later in their life becomes more useful actually, right? So with this, let's just I want you to relax and then just follow up whatever we are trying to say. We are only going to give you a very superficial insight. There are sessions where we can train people to a greater level also. But since this being a very priming session, so I would like you to take information in a very relaxed way, right? So what is this innovation basically? Everybody talks about innovation, you know. So to simplify innovation as a definition, basically it is something new, right? The something new could be an invention or it need not be an invention also, right? It could also be a practice. For example, if you're carrying a passenger from point A to point B by means of a public transport, you know, it could be a crowded bus or it could be a nice sophisticated luxury bus, right? So between the crowded bus and the luxury bus is an innovation, right? So that is another simple way of putting it, innovations. So if you extrapolate this simple point A to point B transport of people using a bus, you could apply it to anything in life. So be it dentistry, be it medicine, be it healthcare, be it your own personal life, you can always do innovation. So there is a whole range and scope of innovation possibilities. Okay. So let's go back in time. So I will try and make you understand what really is the meaning of this innovation. So several centuries back, right? So imagine when there was no electricity, right? Our civilization is just beginning. So what is the problem then with no electricity? As soon as the sun goes down, there is no light, right? So people were struggling in the dark, not knowing what to do. And then they were looking at the stars and the moon, and whatever little light they had, only that was the light source. Then somebody found out there is something called a physical form called fire, you know, which could be controlled, contained and all that. And then that could give them light in the night. So, you know, catching the potential of fire, controlling it, containing it, and then having a campfire in itself is an innovation back then, right? When you didn't have anything to actually see in the night. So just imagine if fellows were sitting there and thinking, see, we need this so-called light if we were to progress in civilized way, and we need to think of something and take things further. So this could have been the earliest conversation as far as light is concerned. So what I want you to do is keep light as the subject of our innovation, just for the purpose of understanding what innovation is. And let's see how far we have traveled, right? Even light is important for dentistry, right? And it is very, very useful for all of us in so many ways, right? So let us see this simple light as a physical phenomenon as an example to understand innovation. So what happened, if you see the timeline of how this light has evolved. So the earliest was whatever is the natural source, so the moon and the stars and the sun, of course, during the daytime. Then we tapped in fire. So you see the timeline, it is several centuries BC, right? Even the fire was a problem, you know, if I just have to light a campfire, I cannot carry it around. The campfire will be burning in one spot. So then they came up with a lantern where this fire can be contained and controlled, and it also gave a mobility. You can carry the light wherever you travel. So that in itself is an innovation compared to a fire compared to a light from a campfire, right? So that is again another one. Then only in 1800s, Thomas Alva Edison could actually figure a way out to make a light bulb. So it's a very, very recent innovation. And if you look at the history of this light bulb evolution itself, you know, what you needed was electricity. So when people were working on electricity, this idea of actually having a tungsten filament and creating a bulb became a reality. Now, when I used to be kids, tungsten filament bulbs were very, very common. Nowadays, you may not be seeing it very often. Maybe you will see it in 1 or 2 places in the remote area where the bulbs are there. Some of you may be having it at home also. But most of the bulbs that you get in the market are done with this incandescent bulbs with tungsten, because they are energy inefficient, because they emit more heat than light. Then they don't last for a long time. The tungsten filament fails, melts away. The whole lot of problems, and global warming in the picture and all that. So we went to fluorescent bulb. So you may see fluorescent tubes and all that. What this fluorescent tube basically is, we have filled the bulb instead of a vacuum with a chlorine or fluoride or any artificial gas inside to prolong the life of the tungsten thing. And then a lot of advantages were there with that. Even that had some problems. So people thought, okay, let us go for this LED. Tiny bit of bulbs, small tiny bulbs, which gives very efficient lighting with no heat practically, and then energy saving as well. So the extension of LEDs, of course, OLEDs, which you are actually seeing on the television screens. Your television screen display panels are basically OLEDs. They are also sources of light, right? And this could go on and on, right? So what I'm trying to say is, at each step of this ladder, there was some innovation that has happened. And the only thing is, what you need to focus is, what is the innovation mind that is behind all these innovations, right? They were all human achievements, no? What did these human beings think of? In what way they wanted to make a difference at that point in time, right? That's where your innovation actually starts. So there is nothing like you have to innovate and you have to be really great and in knowledge, etc., to innovate. Anybody can innovate. The ease of innovation is very, very possible with anyone's mind, right? So that was about light. But in the context of light, when all this was happening, the light bulbs were evolving, something else also was going on. So what is that? Let us see that also. So this is Hans Lippre. So he is a guy in the 16th century who used to make glasses, when people lost their vision, So he used to make eyeglasses for them, right? This is our glasses which we use even today, where it dates back to the 16th century. Can you believe it? So what he used to do is grind glass, polish them into shapes, and then make lenses out of it. And then he used to take care of people's vision. So one day he was sitting in the office, and 2 kids were standing outside near the door, and they were all holding lenses in their hand. They were playing actually. And this guy was sitting inside and watching them play. So what happened is, when the kids were playing, both the lenses from the kids came in one alignment, one straight line. And this guy was, Lamprey was sitting behind that lens. So when 2 lenses came in the same straight line, what he saw was whatever objects were there behind, the ships and all, they all got magnified. So this was totally a serendipitous thing. Oh my God, if I bring 2 lenses together, the light behaves in a different way, and whatever that object is there beyond that lens is actually magnified. Okay, so this is a serendipitous discovery, so to say. So then he started working on that, and then he figured out a way, right? So what happens when this 2 lenses coming together and the person's mind is this? There's something called flash of genius, right? So suddenly your brain starts to think in a different way, and then a lot of neural connections starts firing, and then you start to connect different aspects and then try to relate and make a sense out of it, right? So that's when your innovation idea happens. To me, if you say, I have applied around 9 patents, and all these ideas usually come to my mind as soon as I wake up, when you sleep, when you imagine something, when you sleep, when you dream and all that, and suddenly one fine morning you wake up and then you stumble across a new idea. So this happens sometimes inside everybody's brain, right? So you need to harness this mechanism by which you can think of innovation. That's why I'm saying this, right? Just like what happened to Hans, it could happen to any of us. And then we comprehend and see things in a very different way, unlocking new perspectives, implications, and directions to explore. Directions to explore is, okay, two lenses have come together. So what do I do with that? Right? The effect net outcome of two lenses coming together is a magnification. So what do I do with that? Right? So these thoughts will come once you start thinking about forcing yourself to innovate. Right? Keep trying this like an exercise. Just as an example, so you will be an innovator in no time. So at this, what Hans did is he made a telescope, right? So he made not this telescope which is there in the picture; it's a different one, a shorter one. So he combined two lenses into placed it at both the ends of the tubes, and then he could see the distance. And immediately a thought came to his mind: okay, let me go and meet the military general. So he took the device to the military general and told him, see, this could see things from a far off distance. So it will be very useful for you to see the enemy, right? In the war field, you could see from a distance where your enemy is. But somehow the generals were not interested in the device and it went to the dustbin. Nobody bothered. So this also happens when you try to innovate and pitch your idea to someone that this is an innovation. It could end up in the dustbin also, depending on whom you're taking it to, right? So you shouldn't be really worried, okay, it went to the dustbin and all that, and keep focus on what you want to do and accomplish. So when this was going on, simultaneously in another place, Galileo, this great, brilliant, genius mind, was also working on glasses, lenses, actually. And this guy made a telescope. So this is the telescope. It is there. This is a replica of the telescope. So it is basically a wooden tube with two lenses on the sides. But what Galileo thought was something very different from what Hans thought. And that made a lot of difference, right? So basically what the lens does is it directs the light from a source into your eyeball so that you could visualize something, right? Same as the light, which illuminates and visualizes, helps us to visualize objects like a light bulb, right? But what Galileo did is he pointed it towards the stars instead of pointing it out on the Earth's surface. So he was studying the moon surface, all the patterns, markings on the moon, he was able to notice. He kept a journal to actually draw which day how the moon surface is, and then he was able to pinpoint craters and all, right, in the moon surface. That much he was able to do. And then he was also able to see the other stars and other things. And then he was making a very radical proposition. You know what that radical proposition is? He said Earth could not be flat, but it should be a sphere and everything is spinning. For you to say that there is a sphere which is spinning, sitting on that sphere, and then making conclusions, it's something which is impossible. But this mind was capable of doing it. That's an innovation, If you at least go to moon and see the Earth spinning, you can say, yes, Earth is spinning. But he was sitting on planet Earth with his telescope, and he was able to make that assumption that the Earth is spinning, the stars are there, and then planets are there. These objects are going to move around, and there is something called galaxy and all those things, right? So that is, I see some arrows on the screen. What are they? Okay.
Maybe can I request the organizer to switch off the annotations permission, please?
Yes, ma'am. 1 second.
Yeah, and also erase the.
So that's okay. Then. That's all right.
No, it will be visible in all the slides.
Okay, I'll continue. It doesn't matter actually, right? Yeah. Good. Thank you. So that's what our Galileo did, right? So what is the lesson that we are learning? Even an ordinary human being, if sharpens his brain to become an innovator, start thinking in innovative ways, then it's possible to do a whole lot of things. That is what this message is giving. But we didn't stop there, we wanted light. that was our focus. So in 1990, we launched the Hubble Space Telescope. So this is orbiting around the planet in this space. And then what it does is it captures light from distant objects. This has helped us to study distant galaxies, light sources from galaxies. And it gave us a lot of understanding of what really is going on from different planets and celestial objects. So we didn't stop there. Very recently, last year by December, right? They launched this James Webb's telescope, which is much powerful than the Hubble itself, right? So this is a deep space device. So it is going to explore deep space. Now, when I say deep space, the space itself is so large that we can't even imagine how far and wide it is, right? So if you go just outside this our solar system and look at Earth will be one small tiny speck of dust, right? So it's so huge, and we are sitting and thinking about light, right? Just like several centuries back when we were sitting around campfires when civilization was beginning to start. Imagine the journey that we took from there to here, only about light. So this is all because of the innovative minds that played a crucial role along the way. That's what I'm trying to say, right? There is no, scope for containing your limitations to one particular area alone. You should have a really broad area of understanding. So that's about light in space and all that. So what we can do is, we can extrapolate it to dentistry also, no? It's not more, yeah. So our light, isn't it? So we have near ultraviolet light, which can cure composite resin, and we can create tooth-like, life-like restorations, right? So here also we have tried and figured a way out to modify basic light and then applying it to a new concept. So if you look at light cure composite itself, that itself is an innovation, right? So you have to look at things this way. Although it started in a campfire, we are here to innovate in a way in which we could build restorations, right? I don't want to stop here. Light has other applications in healthcare also. This is another one, fantastic one, which is a very interesting innovation which I came across very recently. What is this? Basically, you are familiar with fracture stent, plaster stents, for fracture. Suppose you have a limb fracture, they put a plaster cast, POP cast, and then allow you to heal for around 6 weeks, and then they remove the cast. So this cast has a problem, what will happen if you put a plaster cast over skin for a long time, right? 6 weeks. So that is going to prevent the skin from breathing. There is going to be some wasting of the muscle. There is going to be some tissue damage. The skin color, everything changes. And then it is very difficult to clean the skin itself, right? So these are some limitations. So this was an invention or an innovation by an MBBS person. He is called Dr. Pankaj. I was fortunate enough to chair one of his presentations last year. What Dr. Pankaj did is, after his MBBS, he went to IIT and then he started working on this composite, right? Our light cure composite only. And then he started making a stent for fracture stabilization. Close to 90% of fractures, all limb fractures, you can address. So there are around 9 patents. Each one of these devices that you see, each one has a patent, right? So he has close to around 9 patents. And then there is a company. He started his own company, and now he is exporting these products to almost 6 countries. Very, very interesting success story. You can just Google, it is called OrthoHeal OH. Just Google it. You can go to his website and know more about it also. There are some videos also how this works. And this curing light is the same light, UV light, near UV light, which we use for our dental thing, right? So this is about the journey of why we need to innovate and all that. And if we take only light as a possibility, as one physical entity, these are the innovations that we have seen over time. I'm not saying these are the only innovations. There's so many other innovations, but just to tell you and open your mind about innovation, I thought these are very good examples, right? Now, there are okay, you understand what is innovation. Now you should know to train your mind to innovate. So how do I train my mind to innovate? So the easiest way is to know how to innovate. So there are six ways by which you can innovate. So just keep these 6 ways in your mind so that whenever you try to innovate, one of them will kick in. So let's see what these ways are with some example. Needing something that is not available in the market. So this is a very common thing, in a very commercial world which we live in. If there's not a product that is available, somebody will try to fill that gap. So this happened in dentistry. So let's go back to 1864 when our guy Barman, S.C. Barman, who actually invented the rubber dam, which we used to isolate teeth, right? So he was fed up with saliva flowing and all. What he thought, suddenly at that spur of moment is, let's cut a hole in a napkin and place it over there. So that idea became the core idea for development of rubber dam. So if you want to think of an innovation which will hit the market, which is already not there, then you'll have to think like S.C. Barman. So there's a problem, there is a vacant area where no products are available to solve it. Try and figure out a solution to it. So that is one way of actually thinking about solving a problem. Then it could be, your genuine human nature to help someone, right? You see people suffering and all that. No? Say, for example, I had a patient with a cleft palate, a 6-year-old kid. In whatever obturator we were trying to make, the conditions were so bad that I could not get a successful prosthesis at all. I really want to help that kid, to have a normal life, normal speech, normal deglutition. But the conditions were so different that it was impossible to rehabilitate that patient in a good way. Multiple surgeries also they tried, all of them were failing and all that. So if you have a genuine concern, to help somebody, then you can figure a way out. This is one very good example. See, this is a mouthpiece, something like a bite guard by Blizident. So it's called as a 3D flosser. So normally, how do we floss? We take a small thread, place it in between teeth and floss. Or you could have a floss threading device like a Y-shaped clamp where you can thread and then take it over different areas. But this is a custom-made floss holder for every patient, right? So once you give your mandibular and maxillary cast, they will make the floss threading device for you, which is individual. So all one has to do is take this and bite into that floss, and in one shot, the interdental areas of all the teeth are simultaneously flossed. So it's a very convenient device. No? So somebody thought of this problem and then figured a way to make an innovative solution, which resulted in the 3D flosser. So this is another good example where you want to, if you want to help somebody. So think of this also. See, we are all going to be doctors, youngsters, especially people. What is our core objective of being a doctor? We are interested in solving someone else's problem. Someone else's problem could be filling a tooth or doing a scaling or even a simple procedure, right? Making an X-ray or something. If someone else's problem makes us into a problem solver. So we are in the best situation to solve problems, right? So think about us that way, right? In that way, you can actually become an innovator much more easily. Then you could combine it and combine 2 or 3 different products so that you could get a different, better product, right? So this is a we know something called bite block, right? So you place it in between the teeth and ask the patient to bite. Patient cannot close any further. So you can have a mouth opening where you can do your instrumentation procedure and all. But what happens is if you put a bite block, retraction of the tissue like tongue and cheek are a problem. So somebody came up with this idea, why not have a bite block and a cheek and lip retractor simultaneously? So 2 products were combined and then a new type of retractor has come into the market. This is already available in the market. I'm sure some of you may be using it also. So you just place it in between maxillary and mandibular teeth, ask the patient to bite. You can even take the handpiece inside that space, this cavity space, and then start cutting, right? Simultaneously, these 2 will actually retract also. So you have it for posterior teeth, you have it for anterior teeth also. So you could use it anywhere, 5 sets of retractors with bite block built in, right? So this is again another innovation. So you can think of innovations like this. If you want to make this better, you could even put a light inside this device itself, which does not have any wire or cable running outside. It is like a remotely operated light or something, which will illuminate the area where you could cut also. That could in itself be a Another innovation. Now you may ask, how do I put a light here? You know, a light will be very chunky and all that. And how do I make it wireless, cordless? So these are some problems when you think of these problems, you are thinking about solutions. See, simple. Earlier days, cameras used to be very chunky. Now you have cameras at the size of a pinhole. You don't know whether there is a camera there or not in your cell phone, right? It's so tiny. So you could put a camera on the retractor itself so that you could visualize on a large screen. So that could be an innovation, right? So just by taking some small problem and thinking beyond, your normal everyday working capacity, you could innovate and make a lot of things, right? So that's what we are trying to help you here. Then the other way is applying a better understanding of what is already there in nature. So nature is a fantastic thing. We have learned a lot of things from nature. Light itself, it came from nature only, right? We have an artificial light today because there is natural light. So you can think of a lot of things which will stimulate your brain to actually solve problems just by looking at nature. So two dental examples is, one is charcoal. Charcoal is what? Basically activated carbon. So you can make charcoal in your house itself. How do I make it? This coconut shell is there, dried coconut shell which we discard after grating the coconut. Just burn it. After it burns, it retains the shape, but then it still becomes like burnt carbon, right? That is actually activated charcoal. Okay, so it's easy to make activated charcoal. If you go back in time, people were using this to brush their teeth. They thought this ash from activated charcoal could actually give a cleaning effect. So this is old technology, But what we are doing now commercially, toothbrush itself is available where the bristle is coated with activated charcoal. So you go to the supermarket nowadays, you can find bristles which are black in color. That is basically an activated charcoal coated brush. The point here is when you take it near the tooth, activated charcoal will absorb bacterial toxins, right? Thereby reducing the tooth damage. That is the funda behind this brush. Although it doesn't look very nice with black color brush, it still does a very physiological function, right, of absorption. The other one is probiotic toothpaste. What is this probiotic toothpaste? See, the oral cavity is filled with a lot of microbes. Different species are there. They are all fighting among each other to make a colony. So if you have dental caries in one tooth, one small pit, what it means is mutant streptococci has come and colonized that area, and then they have started building an empire there. That's why you get caries. But normally when the mouth is healthy, mutants cannot do that. Even if they are present, roaming around here and there in the mouth, they cannot cause caries because other fellows like Sagittarius, other species of mutants, there are 5 different species. All of them will prevent this mutants fellow to come and colonize. So there is always this tug of war going on between health and disease. And bacteria could be very useful to contain a lot of things. That's where this idea of probiotics came in, right? So there are a lot of probiotic products. Now probiotics have actually been incorporated in the toothpaste itself. So we know the natural thing that is going on, and we are trying to make a product incorporating the natural elements. So this is again a whole big area for innovation and inventions. Then you can combine traditional knowledge with modern medicine. So I'm sure all the participants here would have crossed dental materials. So these 2 diagrams are from your Anuservice, your Skinner's textbook for dental materials. So what is this basically is the method of testing different dental materials before it comes to the market. So you have a linear paradigm of testing, this one, and then you have a non-linear paradigm of testing, which is this one on the right? So I will explain what these things are first of all. Before we had modern dentistry, whenever somebody had a toothache, somebody thought if I take a clove and then put it over there and bite on it, then there is some flavor and secretions coming out of that clove and my pain is gone, right? So they were using this clove for tooth pain even before any analgesia came into the picture. So this is traditional knowledge. So nobody knew what this clove was and what is the active ingredient there, which is actually reducing the pain until the modern medicine kicked in. So modern medicine fellows, what they thought, they isolated the extract from the clove, which is called as the oil of eugenol, right? Eugenol, right? It's an oil. It's not eugenol, pure eugenol. It's oil of eugenol. You extract oil from clove, you get oil of eugenol. So they tried, okay, let us test this by modern medicine techniques. So what they did is they did this linear paradigm of testing. What it means is basically you put 1 drop of oil of eugenol in a culture dish where bacteria or some cell is there, and then watch it over a period of time, 1 week, 2 weeks later. So if the liquid is toxic to the cell, it will kill all the cell in the bacteria, or it will kill to some a layer, a zone, right, around the material, right? A kill zone, it is called. So when they tried doing this experiment with eugenol, it killed all the cells. So they thought this is a very dangerous, deadly material, right? So they didn't want to use this material at all. So they took this material and put it somewhere in the shelf. We don't want to work with eugenol. Then a little later, somebody discovered that this eugenol has got a very good property of calming down the pulpal tissue. So when the pulp is inflamed and there is pain inside the tooth and all, eugenol actually calms them, and it is this eugenol which is doing from the clove. Then they thought, okay, maybe our testing method itself is wrong, right? If we start with the linear paradigm of testing, and then lastly in the usage test we test it on the animal, we will discard the useful materials. So then this new field of non-linear paradigm testing has evolved, and it is used in other material testings also nowadays. So what changed from linear to non-linear model itself is this eugenol. So that is the importance of this eugenol, which we use day in and day out in dentistry, right? More traditional medicine knowledge and then modern concept. The last one is this 6th way of innovating. So this is improving any past innovations. We know toothbrush, whole range of toothbrush is available for innovation, and then you have power toothbrush. In the power toothbrush itself, you have lots of different varieties, different devices with different improvements. This is the latest one which I came across. This is called as i10 from Oral-B. This is series 9. There are 8 series before this. Just Google it, you will find out videos and all what this is. So I will just tell you what this is. Basically, you have an app which is on the phone, right? And then you have a smart oral brush which communicates with the app. And then there is a ring here. If you see, there is a green light that is glowing on in the head region. So this is basically a pressure sensor. Suppose if I keep the brush with too much pressure, that green ring will become red in color, right? That means I'm applying too much pressure, so I should reduce the pressure when I brush. So this device has got a pressure sensor also, which will tell you don't apply too much pressure, and then with a warning. And there is a color change also. So you controls the amount of pressure. So you're not going to get any tooth wear and all, especially the cervical erosion and all that. No, those patrician, all these things will not happen. Also in the app, when you brush, it will tell you this area is 74% complete. So this area is not touched at all. This area is 100% complete. So it will tell you how long you should hold it in a particular area and take it all around. So it helps, it gives a very different experience for brushing. And it also helps you to get a thorough cleaning in the most scientific way possible, right? So it's an excellent device, an excellent innovation to brush. What is the problem with this device? Only problem is it costs 16,990 rupees. So it's way too expensive device, which may not be affordable for everybody, right? So even if it is a sophisticated innovation, it still has problems to address. It still has limitations to address. So you should look at limitations as an advantage and try to improve things and innovate upon. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, I'll just stop here. Since it's a combined presentation, I will invite Madam. So she will continue the how part, and then we'll get back again to the what part. Over to you, Sushant.
Okay, thank you, Dr. David. Once again, I welcome you all here. So my introduction is already over. Fine. So this is the reason why we took in this direction. Like it is the golden circle concept where we take the concept from inside out. That is, first we understand the purpose of why, and then go for how and what. Fine. So now being a student, you want to innovate. So the first step is, okay, how to innovate? How will I know how to innovate? As we are all dental students, most common thing that comes around in every corner of our this thing is the dental cast. So is there anything that we could do with these old set of dental cast, right? And we go back, you read your textbook, you find that we can really do something about this, because it shows that the reaction here is a reversible reaction just by adding or removing of water by means of heat. Fine. So again, you think on those steps and you finalize that if in case by any means I'm going to collect these casts and then remove the water, because you have added the liquid to the powder to get this cast. So if I'm able to remove this water content and convert this dihydrate to a hemihydrate, then I'm going to have my gypsum product back in hand, which I can use it. It's a real thing that we can recycle and reuse. Okay. So having known that, you again try with the innovative machine. You just put all the waste cast there, that then get into a ground powder, and then you subject it to heat treatment where the water will be eliminated, and finally you again get a hemihydrate form. Super. So now you have innovated something which is going to help you reduce the cost of gypsum product, reduce the wastage in the clinical area. Okay. And having done that, we know that there are several types of gypsum product available. So how can we improve upon this? Why can't we do something so that all these things get separated, either with a separate machine or within the same machine itself, we could get things separately received at one end, so that we can pack it as the same type of gypsum product, because the water content, everything will be different. So we need to think of those lines, and we can improvise upon all those things. So now this is what is innovation. This is how innovation starts. It starts from a basic problem or the basic thing that you come across every day in your practice or in your life. So what can we do after this innovation? Really, the biggest benefit that we can do by doing an innovation is we have the right over what we have innovated. That is what is called as the intellectual property right. So every country has its own IP office, that is the intellectual property right office, which will provide you with that right. So what constitutes this intellectual property right is, we have several things here, starting from your copyright, your industrial design, trademarks, your geographic indicators, and the patents. So I'll just briefly tell you what each one is and when can you do each one. So starting from the least important of something which is not much related to our profession is geographic indication. So where do they get this GI tag? Is when a place is known traditionally for a long period of time for a particular product, they can apply to the intellectual property office, IP office, and they can get that GI tag. Like we have this Tirunelveli alva, if you have to go to that eatable, and this Kashmir Pashmina. So why do we get the GI tag? It really increases the value of the product and the market rate, right? Because you always see for the authenticity. Even if you go for some restaurants and you want to taste some Italian food, you'll check which area is an authentic Italian cuisine is available, and the chefs are there really from that place. They know, they are trained, and they do an authentic recipe. Then that place will definitely be glowing more when compared to the rest of the areas where they just put it as an Italian recipe available, but it is not authentic. So that is the difference between having a geographic indication, that is a GI tag, or not. So forget this. This has not much relevance to our dentistry. The second thing is trademark. So the trademark is, as you see here in the picture, you can see several logos, right? The companies have, and which you can recognize immediately that this belongs to this brand. So where is this trademark applicable for us is when you want to start a chain of clinics, okay? Or even within Chennai, you are starting some 2, 3, 4 branches. And all the branches, you are going to use a logo for yourself that is designed, which is not existing earlier. And the same type of font you are going to use in a specific fashion. Okay, that becomes your trademark. You could have seen this, registered trademark they would have put. So you can go and apply your clinic logo for a trademark and nobody else would be able to use that logo again without your permission. Okay, you can sue them. So that becomes your trademark. So this is applicable for our clinic logo or something what you want to design. And the next thing is the industrial design. This industrial design it will protect the design of the object. See, for example, we have several companies that offer us the dental chairs, and each one of the dental chair will have their own claims, like in terms of functioning. Apart from that, even the design of the chair, the design of this dentist tool, the design of the spittoon, all these things, there will be something specific for each company on its own. So that is called as the industrial design. So that design you can apply to the IP office and get it patented for yourself. I mean, that industrial design will get registered. Again, whenever all these things are coming under the intellectual property right, that means the monopoly for marketing or using that particular thing comes under you for a specific period of time, until which nobody else can use the same without your permission. Okay. And the next most important one is the copyrights. This copyright is, you can use any sort of work to get this copyright from the IP office, like any literary work, or you do a video recording. You are singing something and recording something related to dentistry. It's not even dentistry, anything. So those things can come under copyright. Essentially, all the textbooks, all the journals, they get no copyright agreement form. They ask you for the copyright transfer authorship. All these things they ask for you. So this is all these articles and textbooks and CDs, whatever we get, all these are some forms of copyrights. So what is the advantage of copyright here is, if you are going to do practice a novel impression technique, or you have found out a new way of doing a surgery, which is advantageous because of certain reasons. Thing is, you cannot patent these things because it is for the benefit of the patients, that is the end user is the society. So you cannot patent those and claim that only after paying me you can follow the surgical procedure. That is not possible. But since it is your own intellectual property right, you can always proceed with having this as a copyright. So this copyright separately you can apply to the IP office and get it. And later, after this only, you can go in for the publication. Remember, if you are going to publish any of these novel things already as an article, you cannot apply for copyright at the IP office because it has lost its originality. It has already reached the public domain. And the last one and the most important one is the patent. So why everybody is now talking about patents is, it is like an asset, because you have a lot of commercial potential for the patent, and the institutions are more moving towards this patent because one side the government is stressing on the Atmanirbhar Bharat, where we should be able to do our own, manufacture our own products. And also the accreditation agencies and everybody is looking at the end product of the research as the development of a patent, right? So what is the intellectual property you have developed from this research product? What is this patent is? It is just a permission for protection of the invention, whatever you have done by the national government. And this could be a product or a process by which the product is going to be achieved. Okay, so how different is this from your copyright is, I'll tell you. So what are the advantages of doing a patenting is, just like other intellectual property, right? This will definitely stop others from copying or selling or marketing your product without your permission. And this invention you can use by yourself, or you can license your patent to somebody else. You can ask them to use and you can get a market the share from them. Like for example, you are designing a lid for a bottle and you are giving that license to somebody else. And how many ever bottles has been sold, for each bottle they have to give you a share from the profit. So that kind of license sharing can also happen with your patent. And what are the things that can be patented is, it should be novel. Novel in the sense, when you are applying this for a patent application, they should not be able to see such a product anywhere in the sense, if you see Flipkart and Amazon, many of these Chinese products are already available. They have not gone for patenting and then coming to the market. They have right away, they have just manufactured several things which are economic very cheap cost, and they introduce into the market. So how long anybody can replicate and do that. So they are not worried about the replication or how many manufacturers are going to manufacture the same thing and sell. But only if they are going to have the patent, then you can tell that you are the sole authority to manufacture that product and sell it. Okay. So before applying for the patent, you need to check everywhere. You need to do a Google search. You need something called as a specific patent search is there. There you need to search, and you need to search all these commercial platforms whether such similar product is available or not. So that is what is called as novelty. And that is why I told you, if you are going to present your novel idea in a public forum like in a conference, or if you are going to publish it as an article, there ends the novelty, because the IP office will check for the novelty immediately after your application. So once they come to know that it has been already published in some area, or it has reached the public through some other source, and people are aware of such thing available, then the application will be rejected. The second most important step is the inventive step. What is the inventive step here is, see, actually Dr. David was telling you the 6 ways of how you can innovate a product. One of that is improvising an existing product. So if you're going to improvise an existing product, at the end, you have to tell what is your innovation that you have done and in what way it is going to be different from the existing one. It could be a technological advantage, or it should be an economical advantage. You can say that the last thing he told about the Oral-B is it is costing around 16,000 and odd for the whatever claims they have given. If you are going to do a similar design, only not exactly similar, you have varied something, and you are able to bring the cost down to 100 rupees or 500 rupees or something, definitely the product what you have designed is having a far more economical advantage than the one that is existing in the market. So that is when you can actually apply and tell that your inventive step, I have done this modification, and because of this modification, I have brought down the cost to this rate. So that is the inventive step you need to explain to the patent office. The third thing is it should be capable of industrial application. Not just anything you innovate can become a patent. If only the patent office can assess and tell that, okay, this product can be commercialized, it will be of use for the public, because without utility, without being having a commercialization ability, the product will not be patented. So these 3 things you have to keep it in mind. See, doing an innovation is going to benefit you in several folds. That is mainly through this having an intellectual property right in your name. And if you have to file it in as an intellectual property, as a patent, you have to keep these 3 steps in mind. Do not disclose your innovation in a public forum. Do not publish your innovation before you apply for the patent office, and make sure that you have got something different from the already existing one, which is going to provide advantage either with the technology or with the economic, that is the cost. Okay, and also make sure that it can be replicated and manufactured in a larger fold so that it will be having an industrial applicability. So you need to remember these things when you're working with the IPR. Fine. So how it can be done is fine here. And now over to Dr. David to tell you some examples of how can you start with, what can you do in this field.
Thanks again, Dr. Saraswati. So we'll continue with whatever we are doing. And what I feel is there is no specific area where you can innovate. You can innovate in a whole range of things. But after doing a lot of workshops, references and all that, what we found was there are some key areas where we can actually spend some time in innovating. And we see that these are things that could happen somewhere in the next 5 years or so. So if you're interested in these areas, then you can actually work on these areas also. But I'm not saying don't work on other areas. You work on any area you feel comfortable with, right? So we don't know what the future is going to hold for us. So if you look at the past, people who have innovated and all that, what they have done is they have created the future. The future that we have, the present that we have is the future created by the past generation, right? So look at it that way. And you're living in the present and you have to do something for the future. you decide what to or where to it has to be taken, right? So you're under the control. You're the young generation, the next generation, which is going to take things further. And when I say take things further, I'm somewhere in the middle of my career, or close to the retirement after a few years. But what I'm trying to see right now is dentistry is not contained within dentistry itself. It has become multidisciplinary, and more often we see that it is more transdisciplinary, right? So if I'm a dentist, I should be able to work with an AI guy, an artificial intelligence guy, so that I can solve a dental problem using AI, the software guy, right? So that's how things have become now, and it could be the same picture as you go along into the future, right? So have a plan to create your own future. Have a plan to create your own predictable innovations which will be there in the future, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. But anyway, I will give you some areas where things can be focused upon. Now, there is something called imagination and reality, right? So this is an example. Once I went as an examiner, I was asking a PG student, you've been doing dentures and all, the PG Prosto exam is the toughest exam in dentistry, right? It goes on and on from early morning to then the second day in the evening. And they have to do a whole lot of procedures, right? So it's very tiring. At the end of the day, they will have the end of the exam, they will have the viva. And when you ask the student, what do you think is the future of Periodontics? So one of the examiners asked this question. One of the kids said, sir, I don't want to make dentures like this. I should push a button and then I should have a denture in my hand so that my job is easy, right? I have to just deliver the denture, give the instructions and send the patient. So that time, as examiners, in the earlier years, we thought this is like stretching the imagination way too far, right? And it may or may not happen, right? The traditional way of making a complete denture requires a lot of skill. That's why you have your preclinical exercises, sharpening your finger skills and all that, right? And you don't know those basic exercises which you have trained your fine muscles of your fingers actually helps in extraction of a tooth also. So there's a correlation. Basic skills and then basic exercises. But you take all of that and then you tell your computer to make a complete denture, you don't have that skill sets, right? You're missing on the skill sets part. So you'll be a mechanical dentist, right? And when you compete with a skillful dentist, you'll be nowhere. So that's the problem with all these technological innovations and all. There is a loss of skill set. And if you see the developed countries, they are actually short of skills. So that's why they are going into a mechanized form, right? Using technology, money, resources. And all. But we fellows are skill-based. We are not more into technology. So that is where the difference is between us. So anyway, after this example, what we found was nowadays we make CAD/CAM dentures are available. You can push a button and then you can still get your dentures done. So what was an imagination sometime back is a reality now, right? So this is what we are supposed to focus on, whether it is an imagination and if I can push my imagination to a reality. That's where you people are, your young minds are really needed, right? So let's see some emerging areas. One of the emerging area which we found out was printable ceramics. This again, see if you have to make a ceramic crown, right? You have to go through a whole range of procedures. Each procedure is skillful. For example, I have to get a shade which is A1 and A2 and in between A2 and A3. So it's like I have to mix, match different shade powder liquid and then fire it in the ceramic, find out whether that area is the same, right? So it's a skill. But if the skill could be done just by pushing a button and then you have a printable ceramic, that saves a lot of time, isn't it? And you don't need to sharpen skills. So this is already there in the industry, but we don't have anything that is happening in the industry as such. But we think that this area is an emerging area where innovations are possible. So this is one in the material side. We also have 3D printed biomaterials. See, nowadays 3D printing is very common. You can print anything in 3 dimension using 3D printers, but this 3D printing is something different. It is on biomaterials, meaning if I want a cartilage to be printed, an ear cartilage to be printed, I can print with cartilage cells itself on a scaffold, right? So that is something which is radical, right? And to some extent it is doable. For example, just Google ear in a rat, right? So you will get some image where a rat will be there. The human ear will be there on the skin, below the skin of the rat's back. So they have already created a human ear cartilage, and to keep it viable, that is under the skin of a rat. So it is a 3D printed biomaterial, 3D printed cartilage, ear cartilage, right? So this is already happening, and there could be a whole range of possibilities that is going to unfold here in this particular area also, right? So these biomaterials could be applicable for anything, from skin to gingiva to tooth to a bone to anything. Then AI, which I was saying, artificial intelligence, this is again an area where a whole lot of things are developing. I'll give you one example here, not in dentistry, but in dentistry also there are a lot of possibilities. See, in UK, there is routine breast cancer screening, right? So what happens is women over an age, a particular age, will do a yearly mammogram. And then the problem is these mammograms have to be studied for any early lesions. So you need extremely trained, visually excellent radiologists to actually diagnose from a mammogram. That's not possible. Not everybody has the skill to actually visually diagnose. So they started an AI app. They started building an AI platform. So before they reaches the radiologist, the mammogram will run through the AI. So AI will tell you this area is suspicious, go and look at it. At least that it will tell. And it will reduce the number of radiographs that is to be screened. So let's say 10,000 women are screened in a year. Only 10 or 15 will actually come to the radiologist. Rest will be screened by the AI tool itself. So that will reduce the enormous burden on the system itself. So this is just one example of AI being used as an innovation in breast cancer screening. So such tools could be applied to dentistry also. We could try in so many range of things, right? Where you can employ AI. So this is another important area. Then there is virtual reality. This is already happening, right? See, the bottom image is a virtual reality simulator, haptics, right? Some institutes in southern India is actually using it also. UK, it is very common. See, what happens in your training setup is you have your phantom head, and then you cut your cavity preparation or crown preparation, and then you try everything on the phantom head. Once it is up to the mark, once you learn the skill, you go to the patient. So in between these two, there is something called haptics or the virtual reality simulator. So UK, what they do is they first do it in the phantom head, then they go to the haptic simulator. That is this one. So what this haptic simulator does is when you cut, you will have this third dimension of perception also. So when you cut, what is your feel when you are cutting enamel? What is your feel when you are cutting dentin? What is your feel when you are cutting into a soft tissue, pulp or something? So this you cannot get it in your regular phantom head, right? So a VR simulator will help you perceive that also. So imagine the skill that your finger muscles will develop. So that will add to the advantage of doing a better treatment on the patient. So this is another virtual reality area which could have a lot of possibility in dentistry. So we could think of some innovations here also. In dental robotics. So this is one robot which has been created already, which could do simple restorations and all. So there are a lot of limitations here. Robot is still a machine, and somebody has to be there behind it to actually monitor, deliver, and all that. So these could be some future emerging areas where things could unfold. Now it looks very imaginative, at this point in time, a robot coming and doing things and all. But it will be more useful when it comes to precision, right? So if a procedure is there where a dentist will find it difficult to do a precise work, let's say for example, last molar where I have to do a root canal cleaning and shaping, where my instrument will not go, finger will occupy space and all that. You have a fine needle which just goes there and takes care of it. That precision will be able to address when you think of something like robotics. So here again, there are lots of possibilities. And then the other thing is nanotechnology and nanomaterials. So this is an emerging area where you can think of drug delivery. You can think of molecules that will go and repair things. For example, you can have a nanomaterial which will go and fill the periapical foramen and then go and seal that. So you don't have to worry about infection getting through the periapex and all that. Now, this may sound like sci-fi, but a whole lot of things are already going on. For example, just go to YouTube and then put liquid magnet for healing, right? So they have developed this liquid magnet which could deform into any shape, go into any fine canal, and then fix things. It's already there, micro robotics. You can just go to YouTube and click on it, liquid magnets and their applications in health, something like that. You put it in YouTube. You actually have magnets which will go and deploy some activity there. So this is also some area, nanoparticles and all that, nano repair and all that, hard area which is emerging. So you can think of this also. So these are some areas which are absolute but not limited to our pursuit. So you can think of anything beyond that also. I would like to wind up here. So if any questions or queries are there, maybe Matt may also join. So you can key in the text box. So it's easy to communicate whatever questions that you have. Any doubts, clarifications that you want also, you can just key in. And this is our email ID. So you can feel free to contact us anytime. We will be more than happy to respond to this.
So we are open for questions.
Yes, ma'am. Any questions? Please, you can please unmute yourself and ask, ma'am.
Good morning, Madam Shiva Shakti ma'am and David sir. It was an excellent presentation, and I am Dr. Anita, Professor and Head of Chetna Dental College. I have some questions, ma'am.
Yes,
We have fabricated a herbal formulation of a chip that can be placed in the gingival sulcus. So, how to go about in the steps of patency after this?
Yeah, okay. So what is this chip, ma'am? You don't have to give specifics. Give me a broad insight of what it
This
is.
chip is a local drug delivery agent
Yeah, okay.
made up of herbal formulations which can be placed in the gingival sulcus.
So you are talking about a chemical
agent.
or you are talking about a device?
Sir, I'm not able to hear you,
so
sir.
is it a solution kind of thing, or you're telling that it is a device?
No, it is like a chip. It is not a solution, ma'am. It is like a
fine. Enough.
chip which we
You
fabricated.
need not reveal more.
Okay.
Enough.
So this is like something new where you can venture into. So how do we go about doing it? First of all, if your idea is very new or radical, you have to search and find out whether that idea is new. See, local drug delivery by packing, doxycycline there, impregnated in a fiber or something, or a local chemical, local anti block agent or something, right? So you have to just search and find out whether what you have done is already there. So you can do this very easily by going to Google and just type, whatever is your material and all, and find out if it is already there. Besides that, you can search in the IP office itself, patent search if you go. So you can search it in the Indian patent site. You can also search it in the WIPO, World Intellectual Property Rights Organization. What I'll do is we will just leave a link in the chat box now. There is a specific video in YouTube itself, which tells you how to go about searching. So just watch that video. It will tell you how to search and all. So it becomes easy for you to go and search, right? So once we do that search thing, and if we find that it is original and unique and all that, there are two ways you can take. So the first way is you can write a provisional patent application. So there are ways to do that. There are patent attorneys and all who will help you to write those provisional application and then file a provisional patent. So what a provisional patent does is your idea is immediately protected so that nobody can copy it, right? But the disadvantage here is you only have 1 year to actually develop this prototype and then file a complete specification. So that is another thing. We had tried a lot of patents. Most of our patents are medical devices. So what we do is instead of going for a provisional patent, we directly make the prototype, test it, and then see if it works. Then we go for a complete specification, right? So that's how we have done. So it's up to you whether to go for a provisional patent or a final patent, right?
Actually, please don't disclose it in any conference or put it in writing in for any article.
And don't publish it
Yeah,
now.
don't
until
publish
you,
it until you finish the
file a
patent
patent.
process.
Yeah. Then, see,
Yes, ma'am.
let's say you have a working device, right? So what you can do is take to your
Yes.
institutional research board or institutional ethics committee, ask them for a request. I have a device like this. Can I test it on a patient or a group of patient or a small sample? Mostly they will allow you to do because it's an experiment, right? So you can get clearance, try it, test it on a group of patient also. And once you have the data, when you apply for a final patent, they may or may not ask you whether you have tested it on a patient, group of patient. And that time, this small test which you have done could be useful to actually convince also that this is a working device or a workable device. Now, once you apply a patent, a complete specification patent, you get a number, right? That number is enough for you to talk to a company. So once you get a number, it is yours, right? Then you can talk to a company fellow and say,
Okay.
you can reveal all your products, details, everything to a company fellow and say whether you can scale it up, get a product in the market. That can be done even before your patent is granted. The very next day you file an application, you can do this. You can go about commercializing your product.
Basically, you can take the help of patent attorneys, ma'am. The patent attorneys are available in each place. They will help you through the application process. We can actually apply online directly in the IP office website. But thing is, the patent search, the patent attorneys will be having an office which they will be able to do a proper search. And also they will help us with the help of lawyers on documenting all these things and proceeding with the further application process. So, but the cost variation will be more, but as we do in person and with the help of an attorney. But definitely using an attorney is highly beneficial.
In the chat box, there is this
Okay.
search for a patent, no, in the University of Central Florida Library. We have just put a message. Just go to YouTube, patent search by University of Central Florida Library. You will get a video there. Just watch that video. It will tell you how to search patents and then see if your idea is actually original or not.
Okay. We have searched all this and then we have formulated a product which is a combination of certain herbs. So only then this product has been fabricated. So now we will go by your guidelines how to proceed.
Yeah, because
whatever you have to.
There are some specifications in the patent law, like which we can apply for patent and which we cannot apply for patent. If we are going to combine a drug A plus C and tell that the AC, the new drug is going to have the synergistic effect of just these two, then they may not agree for this patent application as such. So you need to talk to the corresponding persons before you apply. Because if you have drug A that is established already, which is in use, drug B that is also already established and it is in use, and by combining this drug A and second drug, you are going to give one more drug, which is obviously will be having the additive effect of both of these things, then it may not be patentable.
Okay.
So those things we need to, so in that case, it is not that I'm discouraging you from doing a patent. I'm just asking you, you can think in lines of how you can make it. Like you told, it will be like a chip, right? So if such thing is not available as a chip already, you can tell that is the inventive step. And by giving that inventive step, you can give the claims, like how advantageous it is going to be with, when compared to the existing ones. So that is the way you need to write your application and then file it for the patent filing process.
Okay. 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 Thank you, sir, and thank you, ma'am, for an explanation.
Do we have any more questions?
I have to post the feedback link here. Meanwhile, we can ask, go ahead with the questions.
Good morning, ma'am, and good morning, sir. Sir, we have also done a local drug delivery agent. But then after formulation, what is the steps for ethical clearance? Should we undergo any ethical clearance for patenting such innovation?
So, if you are trying something new therapeutically, it is always better to get an ethical clearance, because tomorrow somebody should not raise questions. This could be a toxic one. Why did you try and all that? of course, there may be risks involved in trying a new product, but you should be able to convince the ethical committee that the benefit outweighs the risk. So there is a possibility of taking risks as well, and maybe my ingredient that I'm using is not toxic. It doesn't damage the eugenol. Zinc oxide eugenol is a very good example. Imagine the first fellow going to the ethical committee where he says all the cells in the cell culture plate is killed. No ethical committee is going to give you permission. No. And why
Yes,
would
sir.
you take a cell material which kills all the cell and put it to human use? Nobody will give you permission. But then it still had benefits. No? So you should think about it that way as a risk benefit. Maybe you can tell present in the ethical committee itself what is the benefit. Benefit outweighs risk, so I'm willing to take the risk. And leave the choice to the participant. Explain the risk to the participant, and participant can give consent. So you can make some arrangement. That's possible.
And also make sure that you do a preliminary patent filing process before you approach the ethical committee, because once you're going to present this in the ethical committee forum, there will be many people sitting around. So that becomes the area where your idea is going to get exposed to the public. So
Okay, ma'am.
why am I telling this much is because two or three people sitting in the department are discussing about IPR idea, and something happens, and in between one person goes and files the same product at 4 o'clock in the IP office, and you file your IP process at 5 o'clock. Even though you are the first person who have thought about that idea, the IP office will consider only whose application has come first. They will not consider about the because they cannot come and investigate whose idea is this, how did it come out. Such things will not happen. So they will go only by first come first serve basis. If the same product, two people are applying, just in a matter of 1 hour time duration difference also, only the first one will get the benefit, not the second one. So that's the main reason you need to be very, very cautious when you're going to present this to the ethical committees.
And all inventors in the application have equal rights. Okay, there's nothing like first author, second author. So if you're going as a team, be very clear who the inventors are, whom you are going to partner with, and then put the application.
Yes, sir. And this ethical committee, it can be from our institution of origin, or it should be from any national or state agencies.
Your own institute is good enough. Wherever you want to do the study, you can do it there itself.
Okay, okay, sir.
This ethical committee, it has a moral responsibility. That's all. Technicalities are little different. That has to be taken care by the Institute Research Committee, IRB or IEC, Institute Research Board. Sometimes you have to take decisions where ethics could be like beyond the science and above the science. It's a moral thing, whether to do or not. So it won't be a rigid one, it is not a watertight compartment. Sometimes even if risky things, let's say a new chemotherapeutic agent for a nearly dying patient is to be tried. They will say, anyway, the patient is going to die, why don't you try? At least it will save lives in the future. That's how ethical committee behaves. So you can always give it a try, make a presentation, try and convince them.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Any other queries? Please feel free to ask.
Youngsters especially, don't worry about repercussions and all. You just type whatever you want in the chat box. We are not going to look at your name also. We will just say whatever is happening inside. Don't worry. Just type if you have any questions to be clarified. Or if you have some questions which could be routed through the Google form also, you can feed it. We will get back to you if possible.
Any other queries?
I think we are done with the questions, ma'am. If any, we can always reach you via your email address that you've provided, right, ma'am?
Sure.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, sir and ma'am, for a very informative and a very interestingly made presentation on a very complex topic that all of us could enjoy and also take home a lot of messages from it. I request the participants to also fill the feedback form so we will know more about it. I thank both the speakers for sharing their time to educate us on this topic.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Shall
with
we
this,
close the session? Yeah.
yes, ma'am, we can close
Send
the
the
session.
feedback link also to Dr. Akila.
Yes, ma'am.
And share it again.
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you, participants.